The problem is that the government has lost the capacity to listen to its own backbenchers, to the all-party select committee, to people claiming universal credit, and to the public. That was very clear in the contemptuous dismissal of my committee's report on the 5-week delay between applying for universal credit and receiving the first regular payment. The government response to that report was published last week. We, in our meetings, studied the evidence, we sifted the material, we listened carefully to what ministers said in response, and it is clear the 5-week delay is forcing people to food banks, it's pushing them into rent arrears. Social security is supposed to protect people from those things, not induce them, as it is at the moment. So on a unanimous, all-party basis, we recommended new starter payments equivalent to 3 weeks' worth of standard universal credit to tide people over those difficult first few weeks. The government's response simply dismissed that recommendation and all the recommendations. Now, of course, the government can reject our recommendations. It could carry out its own analysis and reach different conclusions. We recommended that the department should do its own research on the impact of the 5-week wait on food bank demand, on rent arrears, and on claimants' mental health. The response, I quote, "The department will not be conducting or commissioning any research." That was it. It doesn't want to know. It's lost the capacity to listen. And now, how can it be right that people have to wait until March to find out whether universal credit will be cut by almost a quarter at the end of March? How are struggling families supposed to plan? And what justification can there be for having left job seekers allowance and employment and support allowance unchanged? Those claiming them are in exactly the same position as people claiming universal credit. People receiving the severe disability premium haven't been allowed to switch to universal credit, even if they wanted to. Why have ministers singled out disabled people for such harshness? If the cut goes ahead, it'll push child poverty up to levels we haven't seen since 1997. There's no justification for going back to £72 per week. One very telling point, Mr Deputy Speaker, in the briefing circulated by the British Association of Social Workers, the sharp increase in children in care, up from 60,000 to 80,000, with the enormous cost that imposes, began when the cuts to benefits began. It is a false economy. £20 a week should be left in place.